Hey, everybody, welcome back. My name is Deborah Peters, and you have tuned in to the Deborah Peters Show. It is Tuesday, the 8th of August. It's Lionsgate. So I have been watching some videos this morning on what that energy breakthrough means for all of us. And I think it's really exciting. You know, we've all been through hell and back the last, whatever it is, 3.5 years, kind of lost track at this point. But we've all been through it, and some of us are still going through it. So I just want to encourage you, you know, if you're still kind of in a post pandemic funk or dealing with any, you know, confusion or brain fog or lack of enthusiasm and inspiration, you know, for life, that you can always come here and we're going to pick you up and dust you off and point you in the right direction and help you get yourself into a higher place of just emotional and mental and spiritual awareness and stability. And you can realign yourself with your God force and really truly put your life in the direction that you were designed to go, instead of being all caught up in the negativity that's being thrashed about the world in all of the media channels. So I created this podcast specifically for that. You know, I had an interesting experience going through the pandemic in downtown Los Angeles, which was like living in a prison. And I just, you know, I remember hearing a pastor say one time in one of his sermons, I'll never forget it actually, and he said, you know, when people are in fear, watch out, go the other way, because they are unpredictable and volatile. And you know, when we were in LA and going through that experience, I was like, yeah, I guess now I know what that means. But the whole point here is about raising your consciousness and finding a way to connect inside at deeper levels than you've ever allowed yourself to go in and acknowledge and love, frankly, to just love. And so, yeah, there's 5 pillars that we address in this show: health, wealth, relationships, self-expression, and business. And the reason I threw business in there is because we are hardwired to consistently seek more and more, and to go after the gifts that are in our heart and to turn them into experiences that play out in the marketplace. So really wanted to address that pillar as well. And I want to thank you for subscribing and for commenting. Your comments are the key to the success of this show. And so anytime you can drop a comment, I'm so grateful for that, and do my best to go through the different channels, because we're on every major podcast platform, and do the commenting. I don't have my team do that. I comment back to you. I interface with you. So I want to just thank you up front for being a participant and a supporter of the channel. So today, I have a very, very, very interesting topic for all of us, whether you're a man or a woman. This is the topic of all topics, because it's something that just rarely ever gets discussed, I think, or even acknowledged. And there's been in generations so much stigma around women's sexuality and their right to enjoy their sexuality and to take pleasure in their sexuality. You know, we've had a lot of negative programming and conditioning against that, and judgment and right and wrongness, and you know, it's just nonsense. It's all just nonsense. So my guest today is a phenomenal pleasure naturopath that is based in Europe, and right now she's in one of my favorite countries, which is Switzerland. So ladies and gentlemen, Naomi Harris, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Deborah. I'm really, really pleased to be here, to be having this conversation, because like you said, we don't talk about this stuff enough.
No, we don't.
Hidden things, it's shameful and it's private. we need to talk about this more because it's affecting most of us, if not all of us.
Yeah, and it obviously it has a direct impact on women in every area of their lives, which we'll get into, I'm sure.
Mhm.
But it also has a direct impact on their man, So that relationship, and I've had clients that have had sexless marriages for years.
Mhm.
But that's really not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is a fully balanced marriage, relationship, committed relationship that all aspects to it are connected to. And when a woman is either in pain because of sex or has stopped enjoying sex because of pain or whatever is going on, I mean, that has a detrimental effect on her husband or her partner as well.
Absolutely. And I would also say it's not just partner and relationship and that as well. It's also a woman's understanding and relationship with her own body. Because if
Right?
you're in a relationship, or if you're not in a relationship and you would like to be in one, or if you would like to be sexually active, but you know that there's going to be pain happening, or that it's not going to be pleasurable, or that it's going to be in yourself like weird and uncomfortable, that really affects us on all levels in all areas of our lives as well.
Yes, yes. It's most of my clients over the years have been male CEOs of small to mid-sized companies on a global level, and it's never ceased to surprise and amaze me the intimate stuff they share with me in kind of off the record, so to speak,
Mhm.
when we're doing leadership development or strategy sessions. And I suppose what's cool about it is that, I'm a woman that they trust
Yeah.
and that they feel like they can open up to without judgment. I don't know if they would feel that way with a guy or with a male coach, but um,
Hmm.
I've heard some fascinating stories, to say the least. And there's often or long been, at least in the last maybe couple decades, an emphasis on men and their performance. And
Hmm.
if they have a lack of performance, how that impacts them mentally, emotionally, psychically, spiritually,
Hmm.
financially, if they shut down and they end up, having a low self-esteem about things. And what's never discussed that I'm aware of is that women have that same experience.
Absolutely. And, if we're just going to be talking numbers, for example, we're talking up to 60% of women are going to experience pain with sex, as in pain with penetration or pain in the vulva. 30% of women, and this is all kind of a guesstimate because we're not talking about it, right? Nobody is emailing
Right.
in to add themselves to the statistics list, but we're talking 30%, possibly, probably more, with chronic pain. And I was just curious, and I went onto one of those search engines that shows you how many searches that Google receives in a month for a particular search term. And so I looked at sex hurts, and there was 150,000 searches in the 1 month that I looked at for something to do with the term sex hurts, which means we are talking thousands, millions,
Did
probably
you say
actually,
150,000?
yeah, yeah.
That's massive.
Massive. And I get messages all the time from women in developing countries where they can't access healthcare and they don't have the resources that a lot of us do on this side of the world. And it is just like it's a flood. There are so many women in such desperate need, and it's not being talked about. It's just one of those things. Oh, sex will hurt the first time you have it, so expect it to hurt. And then when it doesn't stop hurting, it's like, well, maybe it was actually just going to keep on hurting. Maybe this is just what I put up with now.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, it's a really, really big issue that isn't being spoken to.
Yeah. And it has a negative impact on the marriage or on the
Absolutely.
relationship. as
Yeah.
well as, how we relate to ourselves.
Yes, it really does.
So what are some of the what are some of the reasons that women have
Pain
pain
sex.
during sex? Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually end up having this conversation often with clients where they say to me, because there's an assumption that there was some kind of abuse or misuse that has happened in a woman's life in order to have pain with sex, or to not wish to have sex, or to have non-pleasurable sex.
Mm-hmm.
And I have these conversations. Often my clients come to me and they go, well, I wasn't abused. I haven't actually experienced any abuse or misuse. So why me? Like, why am I having this experience? To which my answer is, female sexuality is a whole lot more complex than saying, if this thing happened to you, this will be the outcome.
Right. It's not black and white.
It's never black and white. And part of my job and part of the work that I do with women is often it's a little bit of a detective work. It's a little bit of, let's take a whole big step back and break it down and go back to the beginning and see.
Sure.
And what we do know actually in our bodies, and this goes for both pain in the vulva, pain with penetration, not orgasming, having numbness. Numbness is a really big thing. It's probably
Yeah.
actually more women are numb than actually experiencing pain, but we sort of just put up with that. Is that we understand that for the first 7 years of life, we can actually store things in our pelvic area, in our genitals, that actually have nothing to do with sex and
Yeah.
nothing to do with our genitals. It can actually just be shock and trauma that happens in those first 7 years that our body can't process and finish. It stores it there for later. And then later on, when we're older and when we're resourced and when our bodies go, I feel like she can deal with it now, it starts to come up. And I'm noticing there's a huge amount of women entering into perimenopause and menopause. That I'm in a group, I think, that has 60,000 women in it, a perimenopause group. And libido and pain and orgasm are like one of the main topics that everyone's talking
Sure.
about.
Sure.
And I think with the hormonal changes and with that change of life, the body's like, all right, now's the time. We're going to enter into this next power stage of our lives. Let's get this sorted out.
Yeah.
And so it can actually be all the way back to the beginning of something that happened when you were 0 years old or 1 year old. Nothing to do with sex, nothing to do with abuse, but your body took it as a shock and it got stored for later. And that happens for all of us.
That is 100% true.
Yeah.
And I've been saying this for, like 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
The issues are stored in the tissues.
The issues are stored.
And, right. And it's just a matter of where did you store the trauma? I think because we've been through, and this is what I'm seeing in my clients and even in my own life, because we've been through the trauma of a shutdown,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it really broke that veneer, that crust of disengagement, denial, not in touch with our bodies. It really broke that open. It cracked it open. And so more and more women are actually realizing that they've been dealing with this for years and just swept it under the carpet and ignored it, thinking it would go away, or like to your point, this is the norm.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
And it's just not. I think abuse comes in a lot of different ways, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, sexual, spiritual. A psychic attack is a psychic attack, and that is traumatizing and shocking to the nervous system, and it can completely disconnect one from their authenticity, the God force of who they are. And then that does get stuck in the body.
It does. Yes. Yeah. And also I like, you started speaking to COVID and your experiences and what you observed. And I was in a whole group, bunch of pain and sexual and genital pain groups, and the numbers were just spiking. And
People
this
were
is the
coming
thing,
to realization.
but also because there is such a really strong nervous system component to pain, and because there's such a strong safety component to pain, the whole experience of the last 3.5 years have been stress and unsafety. Whether
Yeah,
you're aware of it or not, we have been fed this fear narrative, and we haven't felt safe in our bodies. And it's kind of like the weakest link, like which bucket is already full to overflowing and can't actually take any more being poured into it. And for a lot of women, it was the genital bucket, so to speak, that
sure.
was just like, I'm at maximum capacity already, and now you want me to be scared. And it was just like, no, that's it. And that's when things really started to show up. And I don't think that we've healed as a collective from that experience and really
Oh,
calmed ourselves down, and actually also really admitted honestly the impact that those times have had on us and our bodies and our beings as a whole.
100%. I mean, that's always the breakthrough, isn't it? To be able to look in the mirror and go, this is really affecting me,
Yeah.
instead of medicating with TV, alcohol, drugs,
Yeah.
food, gossip, whatever,
Yeah.
social
That's
media. That's a disconnecting from our source. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to feel it. I don't want to address it.
Yeah.
And nothing good ever comes from that.
No, that's it. We've got to be at home here in the body.
You do, you do. And I also think, too, for a lot of women, let me just back up. So I've heard a lot of complaints from my male clients that their wives aren't interested in sex.
Yeah.
And, I can appreciate where they're coming from, because it's probably kind of a shock to them to hear that. Like, what do you mean you're not interested in sex? Like,
Yeah.
I thought we were attracted to each other.
Yeah.
But there's so many layers to that.
Yeah.
And just the complexity of how the female body is constructed and functions.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
so, one thing could be just, and women suffer greater than men do from, say, constipation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, if you've got a full colon and things aren't working and moving out in a timely fashion, that's going to affect your desire to be sexually active.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I mean, there's so many things that are feeding into this, but one of the things is that women are really tired. We
Yeah.
are tired, and we are getting pulled in so many directions, and we're expected to be stepping up, fully present as a person in a job role, as a person in a mothering role, as a person in a relational role, in a friendship role, in caring for parents as they're getting older, and all of the other demands that we have on our time, and we're tired. And
Yeah.
so then to go, well, I mean, yes, when sex happens, it can be like something that gives us more energy and makes us feel good and alive. But to get over that edge of going, let's actually step into this, can
Yeah.
actually take a little bit. And the other thing is, and this is not non-judgmental, but just as an offering to your men who may be listening, is I think often women are not being honest about how much time they need, how much foreplay they need, how much slowness they need, how much
Mhm. The
they need,
connection.
how much connection they need. So if for a man who's just on and he's ready to go, fantastic. But if a man thinks that he's going to tweak his partner's nipples a few times and like give her a kiss and that she's going to be ready to go,
I
we
know.
don't work like that. We need time, we need slowness, and we need attention, and we need touch, a lot of touch. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of women with a lot of shame about that, a lot of shame about it takes me 45 minutes before I'm even really that interested. And
Yeah.
like the amount of foreplay is necessary before I'm even like, okay, let's do this. And so because men aren't built like that, it wouldn't maybe occur to a man that actually this is going to be a little bit more time and attention is going to need to be devoted to this experience than what you may need as a man in order to enjoy yourself.
Do you think, I agree with you. Do you think that the porn industry
Yeah.
has brainwashed men into thinking it's just like slam dam and we're done?
Yeah, porn has brought a multitude
Women
of
actually like
issues.
that.
You know, porn's also, I mean, I agree. It's definitely educating men on how to have porn sex, which isn't actually sex. It's performative, camera-oriented porn sex,
Fake.
fake. And one of the other issues is that it's actually educating women that sex is painful, because a lot of porn is actually painful for the women who are having it.
Of
If you just
course.
objectively look at what's happening on the screen and put yourself in the woman's body,
And
that
even,
often isn't a comfortable or pleasurable experience. It's a camera oriented experience. So, if a young woman is also learning about sex from porn, her education is it's going to be violent, there's going to need to be anal, I might get choked, I might have all of these other experiences done to my body, but
insane.
actually, I'm already scared about this whole thing.
Yeah.
And then stepping into that, actually, yeah, it is a real issue. Porn education is a problem for the young ones and for the old ones.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a conditioning
yeah,
that, sex is superficial and loud and obnoxious and painful, and that there's no real love connection that exists.
right. And it also feeds that dopamine pathway, so you need more in order to get the same pleasure, and
Mm,
you're not going to get that from a real life human in front of you, because they're a real life human with their own needs and expectations and desires. It's not what's being shown on the screen. So there becomes this massive disconnect from the reality of a woman in your space as well.
yeah, yeah. So, whew, like that's just that's tragic, really.
Yeah,
I
it
kind
is.
of, I'm kind of sort of like yearn for the old days, whatever that means. I don't even know what that means, but when courting was a thing,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you got to know each other as people
yeah,
and created a friendship.
yeah. Before the days of the apps and the swiping and the porn and yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Horrible.
It's changed the whole nature and the landscape out there
It
for
really
sure.
did. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what are some of the symptoms that you help women deal with?
Oh, it can be anything. So some women have and when I say excruciating, I'm talking I have clients who can't get out of bed because of their pain. And
Wow.
that's ongoing pain in the vulva or in the clitoris or in the tailbone or in the perineum. So any of the structures on the outside of the genitals. And then there can also be ongoing pain and burning, itching and numbness inside. And that's just in its own right. So that just happens. And then there's also the aggravated by touch or by penetration, and that can be also close to the opening of the vagina, and that can also be deeper inside as well. So it can be a whole, and for some women it is sort of a little bit of pain most of the time that gets massively aggravated by penetration, and for some women it's only with penetration, and for some women penetration just actually isn't physically possible. The body is so tight, the muscles are
Yeah.
so tense that nothing can actually enter the body as well.
So these are, it sounds to me like these are physiological responses to a greater issue, a root problem. Is that a pathology? Is that, what is that?
It's different for, again, it's so different for every woman, and that's why the detective work is really necessary. For some
Sure.
women it's really clear. I'll give you a client example if I can, that would
Yeah.
give an example of one. I had a client who I spoke to from India, and she reached out to me. She'd had premarital sex with her fiance and had discovered that she had vaginismus, which is the condition where nothing can enter the body, so that the penis can't actually come inside. And when we unpacked it, it became really clear that she'd been told that only bad girls have sex outside of marriage. And it was actually dangerous, because if her family found out, she would be physically punished by the male members of her family. So, of course, her body was protecting her and going, I don't think this is a good idea. Let's
Yeah.
not do this. But for her, it was deeply traumatic. She couldn't go and speak to a medical professional about it because she wasn't allowed to be having sex.
It's
There
insane.
wasn't guarantee her fiance would now marry her because there was no guarantee there would be sex and then children. She was in this real bind about it. And we literally unpacked that. And I gave her some practices to relax, open the pelvic floor, and get to know herself better. And she wrote back to me, and the next time she was 80% pain free. And for her, it was like that
Wow.
quick. So it can be something really obvious. For others, it can be something really subtle, and it's a real detective work to find it. And it can be like it's not necessarily always the psychosexual piece, the beliefs and the mind and the mental history that's impacting the body. Like you spoke to constipation, but there's also food intolerances, for example.
Right.
There's hormonal imbalances. There's actually physical issues with the pelvis and the pelvic alignment and how it's all being held. There's scar tissue. There's medications that actually dry women out or make it painful, like make the tissues painful. So there are so many possible reasons that could be feeding into this. And one of I guess the sad things is that I can never just go, just do these 5 things and you'll be fine to
Right.
everyone I meet, because it's such a detective job to go, oh, let's try these things and work out what it is. And it's a bit of a 2 steps forward, 1 step back sometimes as well before we finally like get the thing that unravels the knot, and then they fly.
Yeah.
But yeah, but again, there's sexual education, of course, what we learn in school or what we learn from our friends or our
Right.
teachers, our parents. There is what we were exposed to as a young person. There is like the belief patterns that we formed about sex and again, we spoke about porn already. There are so many different things feeding in. We are so complex. And
Yeah.
one of the main focuses that I have in my work is not so much um, like do these relaxation practices and you will open up and everything will work, even though that is one of the pillars that I work with. But one of the bigger ones is actually, what do you believe? Why do you believe it? And is it really true? And when we can start unpacking that, that's when the magic happens. That's when it's like, oh, I actually could have had an orgasm all this time, but
Right.
my beliefs about my body had actually turned off my nervous system in that area to protect me or whatever was going on.
And it will
And
do that.
and it will, of course it will. Our bodies are so smart and they're working so hard to keep us safe. It's just that we don't necessarily like what they're doing to keep us safe.
Right.
Which, I want to have a penis inside me, says the brain, and the body goes, no, 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 no. I need to keep
No, we're not doing that.
a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
So it's like building up this relationship with our bodies as well, and actually like loving them and becoming friends with them so that we can understand where it's all coming from and then go, oh, you don't have to do that for me anymore. It's okay. I've got this now. I'm an adult. We're not 3 years old any longer. It's okay. And
Yeah.
take a deep breath and let it go. Slowly, in layers, of course, as well.
So I think that, what I'm hearing is um, there's a shame factor
Absolutely.
attached to
Massive.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a shame factor on the way we look, the way we smell, what we would like our bodies to do, how long it takes us to get aroused, whether or not we can orgasm, the
Yeah.
number of partners we've had, the number of partners we haven't had, what our religious beliefs tell us we should expect for it. Like, we are programmed to feel so much shame, and it's all coming from outside of us. None of this is honest and true from inside of us
Sure.
because we're not built and we're not born with shame. Fetuses touch themselves for pleasure in the womb. We have it, like, it's been recorded on ultrasounds of fetuses masturbating
Sure.
before they're born. We're built for pleasure. We're not built for this shutdown and this pain and this shame, but we're so deeply conditioned into that just from the day we're born for a lot of us. If
It's
we don't
great.
have expressed parents who are just like, yes, go and discover your own body. These are the limitations that you need to observe so that other people don't get triggered by it, but go and do it. But most of us haven't had that experience.
Well, even just some fundamental religions, that you're born into sin and
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
bad from the get-go. And, you
yeah.
know, it's like, God, what a horrible program to install into an innocent baby child's mind. No wonder there's so many people struggling in life.
Absolutely. I had a religious upbringing as well, and it wasn't even fundamentalist. It was just a general Protestant, kind of gentle Protestant upbringing. And they told me if I have sex before I'm married, I will either get an STD, which I'm stuck with for life, or I will get pregnant and then everybody will look at me. And that was my sex ed. And
Wow.
so even that, like this kind of gentle religion was still taking me down that path of it's shameful, wash yourself. And so, of course, my first experiences were not pleasurable. In fact, were quite painful as well. I have my own experience of pelvic and
Yeah.
sexual pain, which put me on this path. And
Well,
it's
yeah, I
kind of
mean, it always comes from experience, doesn't it? Like you could,
yeah,
it's relatable.
yeah,
You have you have compassion for people.
yeah,
You healed, so you have a toolbox. So it's like a mission.
yeah. That's it. That's what happens. And then I'm like, oh, life can be this good. Okay, everybody needs to know how good life can be. And then
Right.
that's the mission as well. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Fascinating. So, I think too, there's just there's issues around sexual abuse, where during that abuse as a child, for example, the victim disconnects from their body to not feel
Yeah.
and be present with what's being done to them. And
Absolutely.
then that stays like that stays turned off
Yeah.
for maybe decades in their lives.
It can actually stay turned off for life, you know. In the Netherlands, I actually do in-person touch-based sessions, and I was speaking to my teacher about this, and I said, you know, every single one of my clients disassociates. They leave their body when it gets too much. Is
Survival.
it just me? And she said, no, 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 it's everybody. We all do it. And I actually can catch myself in just small ways, like I leave as well because it's too much to stay in here. And so it can very much become that we just get in the habit of leaving our bodies when anything sexual begins to happen, or we can completely shut down any sensation and become completely numb, or
Yeah.
have this physical experience of the body going, no, 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 nothing's coming in. But there's so many different ways that our bodies and our beings can show us that there is something that's happening that isn't safe. And one thing about that is that our bodies don't have a sense of time. So if you did experience any abuse or misuse, even like far back as a young child, to your body that is happening now or yesterday or like in the last
Right
year,
now. Yeah.
there's no differentiation between, but that was 40 years ago and now I'm an adult and I can say no and I have consent. And the body's like, no, that's not safe.
That's
You
very
know
present.
it's not safe. And so to work with our bodies is actually one of the ways to access the healing of the traumas and the access of bringing forwards the pleasure and the orgasm is to actually acknowledge that a lot of this is going to be some child aspect that was traumatized in some way and to
Mhm.
heal that. And I will say, because there's a lot of people, I don't know how much there is in the US, but in Europe, I know definitely there's a lot of people offering, like it's called de-armoring, where you remove the armor that the body's put up because of past traumas. It's what it sounds like. The body puts up armor. But one of the issues that we're finding is that a lot of people think that in order to remove armor, we have to go in there hard and we need to strip it off the body. But the psyche is not ready for that. And it
Oh,
can actually be deeply traumatizing for the body to have that happen. So I do offer de-armoring, but I offer a soft touch de-armoring where I literally just touch the body like this and I send in love and awareness and I allow the body to reset itself. So it only happens at the time that the body has the capacity for it to happen so that the psyche doesn't get forced down any path it's not ready for.
yeah.
And we
Yeah.
can actually do this for ourselves at home as well. So I work online and I take women through self de-armoring where they work with their own bodies and they can do that obviously again at the speed of their bodies because it's so important that we go slow and that
Mhm.
we're really aware when we heal that, you know, if you're healing and it's a 3-year-old part of you and you're coming in all guns blazing, you're like, I'm going to fix this. And you've got a scared 3-year-old who's actually driving the bus in that moment, it can actually be really terrifying.
Absolutely. It can make it worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes and often it does. Yeah, it's really important to find somebody who honors your slowness if you're going to go down that healing path through the body.
Yeah. Well, there's a terminology in neuroscience that says the unconscious mind kind of shadows things that the conscious mind is not ready to address.
Yeah.
And when that person is capable and aware enough to be able to process whatever that trauma that's stored in the background,
Yeah.
in the vault,
Yeah.
then the unconscious mind will present that to the conscious mind to be dissolved and released.
Yes.
And you can't rush that. And, I've always felt that about colonics.
Huh.
It's, there's a reason, I did a bunch of research on this. There's a reason the colon is not releasing.
Right.
And
Yes.
right. And if you research the makeup of the colon, you can find, just like acupuncture or acupressure points in your feet connect to all your organs, then it's the same in the colon.
Mm-hmm.
There's as many neurotransmitters in the colon, or maybe more, that are connecting to experiences you've had, emotions you've had, thoughts you have, beliefs that you hold, paradigms that you live under, worldviews. I mean, it's all there. And the holding on is because it's not safe to let go. So why would you force the colon to do that? That's traumatizing in and of itself.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it becomes that way for all parts of the body. And one of the things
I
is as well, it isn't necessarily always that the psyche has the readiness. It can actually also be, although that's part of it, but it can also be that there's enough support around you. So one of the first things I always ask my client is, how many support people do you have in your life? How many people know that you're going through this? How many people can you reach out to if you need it? I step into that role, obviously, if they don't have anybody, because there is so much, like, we are pack animals, we're community creatures, and we're taught as women that we have to do this all ourselves and we have to sort this out ourselves.
Right.
I have clients whose partners don't realize that they have pain with sex, and they've been together for 20 years and it's hurt for 20 years.
Man.
They've never felt that they could speak to that shame that they hold. And so, but we need that support of the people around us to actually feel secure and brave enough to address these really, really hard things.
Well, and in marriages like that, or relationships like that, when you consider the contradiction of, as a couple, you have this desire for one another,
Yeah.
then to actually act on it causes pain.
It's,
That creates an anchor in the psyche that is now it's a pain related anchor to the relationship. So then it becomes like, this relationship causes me pain, or this person causes me pain, or it gets displaced, and that can make it, that can kill a marriage. I mean, that can make things even worse.
yes. And I have conversations with men. You know how you were saying at the beginning that men, they tell you, I mean, you can imagine what people tell me, just,
Yeah.
they find out what I do. And I've had conversations with men and they are just like, oh, I hurt my woman. Every time I want to be intimate with her, it hurts her, and they know it. And they love her so deeply. And the impact of that on a man who's there to provide and protect for his woman, and his physical expression of his love for her creates pain.
God.
It's such a
Yeah.
big deal. And I think that we actually don't honor men enough in these experiences as well, to go, yeah, it's actually a real
Yes.
deal, and you need to go and talk to somebody as well. Like, it can't just be her doing all the healing. It
Yeah.
needs to come from both of you, and then also the relationship then needs to work that through, because for her body, he's not safe.
That's
If
right.
he is being created through sex, her body doesn't believe that he's safe, no matter how deep the love is between them.
Yeah.
And that's no
Well, here
judgment,
it
no
comes.
finger pointing with that. It's just a reality. So rebuilding that as well is so deeply important.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the healing can take place.
Healing. That's it. Yes.
Yeah. It's just phenomenal. I find that where we are now in the consciousness of humanity, and it's constantly increasing and expanding, and we're more aware, self-aware now, I think, maybe than we've ever been.
Yeah.
Although I do believe that at the turn of the century, like the other one, like the 1900s, I think there was a really massive spiritual growth movement that was taking place. And I've studied a lot of the great movers and shakers of that time. And it's almost like, what they've written in their books was meant for now, And so I'm enjoying riding the wave of this and watching things unfold and having this kind of a conversation. I was, when I was putting together the message for the email campaign, and Margie's my podcast producer, and she had sent me the show notes, and I was like, wow, this is a whopper. I mean, we're really addressing a conversation, having an open, anatomically correct conversation about a major issue that has probably been swept under the carpet for eons.
Eons, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've been talking for 42 minutes now, and we could talk for another 420 minutes. Like,
I know.
Could just keep going, because the layers of complexity to it, and female sexuality, but male sexuality, but female sexuality is so complex. And what we're carrying in our bodies, in our beings, and in our hearts is so complex. And like, I always have such deep compassion and love for my community and for my clients, because I just see we're all doing the best we can. We really, like, we're all stepping up as much as we can, and we're kind of in it, like, it's like, oh, I just got through that thing, and oh, here's the next thing. And it just really feels like, like, even within our bodies, and as we age and things change, and all of those things.
Sorry.
That's okay.
It's almost overwhelming.
Yeah, it can be. Absolutely.
Because it's just, once you open the floodgates, there's no stopping. And I feel like that's where we are. Like, the floodgates are open, and there's no changing, there's no going back. Like, you're never going to float, you're never going to shut the dam, it's like full on. And so the structures are unraveling at warp speed. I mean, I'm even going through that myself. I'm like, wow, I'm going through this colossal purge / reboot in every area of my life. And it's just like heightened. It's like, it's just like way up here. And thank God I have the tools to deal with it as a coach, because imagine if I didn't. And I feel like so many people are really like grasping at, where can I find some information on this? Because they want to heal.
Yeah.
Whereas what's different about that is, maybe a decade ago, maybe not even as long as that, they were like, well, let's just tuck this under the carpet and we'll talk about this.
Pretend it's not happening. Too shameful to talk about. Too hard. Yeah, for sure.
What will people think? I mean, that whole layer is peeling off. Like, what others? I remember there's a book. I think it was by Terry Cole Whitaker. Sometimes I get her mixed up with another author. Nonetheless, the title of the book is "What You Think of Me Is None of My Business." And Man,
Yeah.
that's probably a 30-year-old book that's now probably in its prime.
Yeah. And really difficult. That is a difficult one to put into practice. Hey?
Yeah, master that, man, and you're free, right?
It's true. That's
Yeah.
true. It really is. Yeah. Yeah.
God, you are delightful to have as a guest. Thank you so much. Someone's trying to reach me. So I guess we better say goodbye. This looks like it's important. What's your URL?
Thank you for being so open and having this chat about these like
Yeah.
secret, shameful topics as well. I really appreciate every time anyone's willing to have me on to talk about these things openly.
Oh yeah, I'm having you back. What are you talking about? Like, we just started.
Yes. Yeah.
And next time I get across the pond, we're going for dinner.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Yeah. I haven't been across the pond since the end of 2019. I refused to sit on a plane with a mask on my face for 10 hours. Like I'm just not torturing myself. I'm sorry, out of fear. I'm not doing it.
No.
So quickly, what's your URL? How can people find you?
So people can find me at thepleasurenaturopath.com. And can I offer as well? I have a couple of free. Yeah. So I have a couple of free downloads. So you'll open up my homepage and there'll be a picture of my smiling face, and then there'll be 2 download options. And I have one download PDF that's all about healing pain, and one download that's all about finding more pleasure.
Love
and
it.
I'd like to say just a little bit, because they're not like what you'd expect, like, oh, just rub this part of your body and then you'll be able to have a vaginal orgasm. Or it's actually practical, like learn how to breathe like this, or try out this particular healing thing, or for both of them. And they're both super interesting, and they both kind of complement each other. So whether you have pain or not, the pain one's also useful. And you can just find those on my homepage as well. And
that's fantastic. Well, we will definitely put all of your information in the show notes.
Yeah.
And I think Margie probably has all your social media, so we'll tag you everywhere. And of course, this is going to be on every major podcast platform around the planet. So we'll build you up and let people know what you're up to. I think this is phenomenal.
Yeah. Keep on breaking down those barriers of shame, hey? And
100%. Yeah, there's no place in this world for shame at all.
No,
so,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deborah. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoy Switzerland. I'm jealous. All right, guys. It's so pleased that you joined us today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And remember to subscribe, like, share, and comment, because that's what really makes it grow. And most importantly, in your daily life, stay aligned, stay alert, and stay awake.